because it's an iPhone app.
How does it know it's a bike and a pedestrian or a car, or how does that work?
Just the different monitors that they have.
And it's designed for cyclists. It's designed, yeah, it's designed for cyclists. So again, this is
the speed wouldn't naturally.
So this is something that your department right here would use. So when you're looking at a road diet, what you do is and I'm not going to get too technical with this. This is way above my pay. I'm kind of planner architect, so this is way above me. This is engineering. This is for the Roberts. But basically, even this is a good indicator. When as you lay out the possibility of a road diet, you take your current capacity, you project your future, you plug in all the other information, and right here on a graph before you even start, it's going to tell you as an indicator whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. You're not going to really know until you do it because you got to continue doing that testing. But there are programs that are available to traffic engineers to be able to collect this data and plug it in there and know whether this is going to work or not. You can look at your lane capacity, you look at your high traffic counts, you look at your time peaks and your non-peaks, and basically there's programs out there that help to design this. You don't just randomly say, like, you know what, I think I'd like a road diet there today. I mean, it's done with lots of methodology and information. So this became our active transportation plan. We started looking at all the northbound and eastbound connections at a very rudimentary level. What possibly could work based on all that data and evidence that we provided to you before then. We looked at the possibility of even having not only actually a transportation facility, but key points for transit centers, and we identified some obvious ones. Like the Shiloh area is important because we have a huge amount of invisible riders going out to the warehouses because that's how they work. The second one would be Town to You, it's a no-brainer. Third one would be the Metro, of course, our Metro being the center of the spur of all the mass transit, and then the last being LCC South. So we looked at areas that we could identify for transit centers, and then we actually came up with a plan citywide that could be used. This is just a directional draft. It's really up to this department to do the research and verify whether this is going to work or not, but we gave them a plan. And then we did something else that we really were proud of. We overlaid it over your current El Metro bus routes, because park and ride is another way for people to get around, and they do get around. Again, once you start looking around at the buses, and there are buses, like I said, that you have to literally let them go by because you can't get your bikes on there. We have a large population that come into the city, use those buses, and get off and ride, vice versa. Well, who would want to ride on a bike, on Clark Boulevard, right? Now this one is a little bit more, what it could be, but again, with road diets, proper data, and now we're not proposing this, we're just giving you some eye candy to show you that this is going to make riding a bike a little bit more appealing to a Laredoan than that. What would you rather ride on if you were going to get on a bike? This population is growing. Young people are asking for it. Believe me, nobody knows how hot it is in Laredo. I moved here from New York City. The day I moved here, I almost passed out from heat. The day I moved here, it was 114 degrees. It was in June of 1990. They closed the highway because the off-ramps were melting. I know how hot it is in Laredo. We have these crazy summers. But we have 6 months of heat, and then we have beautiful weather. There's active transportation systems in Minneapolis, Minnesota, freezing cold, they ride. Seattle in the wet, I go to New Orleans or Miami, they're riding. I mean, people adapt to weather. I mean, we're adaptable. We live in Laredo because we adapt. We prefer air conditioning, but...
Well, I was just going to say that. We adapt because...
We adapt, that's right. But communities adapt also for active transportation, for the people
Well,
that want.
and also, if you don't have another method of getting around or commuting, you have no choice. You have to put up with the heat, and that doesn't mean that you don't have a right to a safe commute.
So just a couple of examples. Something as narrow as Convent. Another thing that came up big in the comp plan was a lot of people were asking for a light rail system. So just here on Convent, coming off of Bridge 1 this is important because, I don't know if you realize this, we have thousands of commuters crossing Bridge 1 on bikes. And that number is going to increase because the bridge just introduced, and kind of will show you in a few minutes, it actually has a biking inspection lane. That number is going to increase. We have a real issue downtown on bikes locked up all over the city, buildings, all these unruly places. We're working on a bike rack, they're called bike corral projects right now. Those bikes are coming in. Some of them get dropped off at the end of the bridge, some of them get put on the buses, some of them ride our streets. So this is not just a road issue, this is like, we're looking at this from many different aspects, and Kevin will take you through all the departments that are working on this, because it's not a one department issue. This affects almost all of our city departments, at least the ones where it comes to taking care of our city, our streets, our transit. And so something as simple as this, let's bring a rail system back. I mean, this could be a very tight street, but it could become a very different kind of street with that same right-of-way dimension. Because they're coming off of Comet and they are riding bikes. So I just want to leave you with this slide, because this is a story that I heard. Once I heard this story, I mean, it brought it home for me. We heard of one cycling commuter. He lived in South Laredo, way down, like below LCC. Think about this. He works on the Mines Road in the warehouse district. Okay? This is his day. He wakes up in the morning, he gets on his bike, he rides from his house to Highway 83, about a mile. He waits for the bus, he gets on that bus. Every single bus line in the city of Laredo, no matter where you're going, because it's a spoke and hub system, goes to the El Metro. So he takes that bus to El Metro, he gets off, he takes his bike off, he waits for the bus that's going to take him to the Mines Road. Sometimes those buses at rush hour are filled because there's only 3 position bike lanes, right? So he'll have to wait for the bus after that maybe. He'll get on that bus, and he's going to go to Killam Industrial Park, where the bus route ends, and he's going to work at an industrial park another mile away. So then he gets back on his bike, and then he rides to that place. That's how he goes to work not this particular gentleman, but that's a story that we heard. That's how that particular gentleman goes to work every day. And guess what? At the end of the day, he gets to go home, the same way I just described to you, except in the winter, it's dark. And he does it in the dark. These are the people that we don't necessarily think about when I'm driving my nice, my nice little FJ with my music blasting and my air conditioner on. But these are part of our community that we really want people to understand that we need to address. So
I don't recall if there were statistics in Laredo what that represents. Like what?
Oh, I think you had like 1%, right?
0.01%. Well, we've also, as we learned through our advocacy efforts, we've been looking at data. We tried every effort that we take on has to be backed up by evidence, by data, by numbers, and we've learned that there's really kind of there's some flaws in the research that aren't really revealing the true population that cycles. Mainly the cyclists that cross every day from Mexico, who aren't counted in the census, they're not counted, but they're still riding the streets of Laredo. Right. So to answer your question, there are some numbers, but we don't believe that they're accurate. They're an accurate representation of
They're not being counted. They're not being counted. We don't believe they're being counted.
Mm-hmm. So.
But what are the numbers that you assume are being counted?
Well, we're working on that now. We're now working on that. In fact, we're going to be working with TAMU and actually A&M itself. They want to come down and start helping us with that. We are trying to collect that data. We know they're there. We're trying to get the data and evidence back. We know they're there. They're not being counted now. We are working on getting them counted now. That's one of our efforts in Laredo.
So not to keep you much longer, but this is kind of based on everything that Frank mentioned. That's how Bike Laredo got started, and we really learned that. To me, I didn't learn to ride a bike until last year. So it's not like this has been an issue, like I want to ride a bike everywhere, but it really became an equality issue and a health issue. And understanding that systematically, like the way our cities are designed has a direct impact in our health and our economics. So, we can't alter human behavior, we can't get people, you could, but it takes years and years. But if you change the system and you make it easier for people to get on their bikes, little by little, you start to have a dent in that. So that's why Bike Laredo started. What can we do systematically as the city of Laredo, as an advocacy group, to begin designing a better city that's more walkable, rideable, where people feel more inclined to go to places. So once a month we meet at the health department. We've met with other advocates who are also passionate and interested and committed to making our city a healthier place. And just to look at the presentation, this is a list of all of the departments that show up. We have the traffic department, we have a metro, we have parks, the city of Laredo Health Department, the police department, fire department, you name it, local bike shops, everybody who has a say in how can we collectively work on making our active transportation system better. So our approach has been through 4 different efforts. Our hike and bike trail system, making them better, making them more rideable. Our bike safety and education, we have to educate people how to share the road. Both motorists and cyclists. People, keep 3 feet of separation, make it safe, teach cyclists, you have to follow the rules of the road. We hear a lot of, from our different efforts, we have heard some backlash against cyclists, and we don't refute it. We do think cyclists should learn how to, not own the road, but it's about sharing it. And once people know how to ride and how to drive, that's what we're beginning to make an impact. So anyway, the Bike to School program, that's another one of our initiatives, beginning with the little ones, educating them at a young age. The more you encourage it, the more this starts becoming part of a cycling culture. And ultimately the bikeway system, which is how can we begin implementing the map that the citywide bikeway plan that Frank showed earlier, how can we start putting it and making it a reality in our streets. So here are some of the examples, taking you very quickly through them through our 4 committees. We learned that this is some of the evidence that came out from what other cities, not only is it a social equality issue, but a lot of cities that have become bicycle-friendly communities, which are a bicycle-friendly community certified by the League of American Bicyclists, which is an organization that's been around since the late 1800s. Once you become a bicycle-friendly community, cities, this is statistics from Boulder, Colorado, they've seen a tremendous increase in economic impact. So, over $10 million in sales for bikes. Once the street becomes more rideable, people feel more inclined to go to local businesses in the area, shop, dine, and bike. These are other campaigns. So there definitely is an economic impact by making places a lot more enjoyable for people to ride their bikes in. So here are some of examples. So after taking all of this information and sharing it with our council, we have Councilman Bali. He's ridden streets all over the country. We have Councilwoman Nelly Vielma, also on the Bartlett Parks, and Councilman Charlie San Miguel. So everybody's kind of in their own districts. They're trying to implement ways to make their street a lot more rideable. And here are some of the strategies that our traffic department has worked on. As you know, the bicycle pedestrian coordinator, which will be a huge benefit and a huge impact to all of the active transportation efforts that we're taking on. This is a slide from a presentation from last month. Just really focusing our efforts into catering to not only one type of commuter, which is the motorist, but to pedestrians, to cyclists, to skaters, to even if somebody wants to ride their horse, they can do it.
Really?
Well, that's what an active
But
transportation
there is an
system
ordinance, you can't have a horse if it's out in the streets, if it's 85 degrees or hotter.
Oh, really?
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
That's why the city doesn't have, they at one point had those horses.
Because of the rider or the horse?
No, the horse.
I don't care about the rider.
You don't allow the horse to be working above 85 degrees. I wish they had that for us.
I have a quick question. San Bernardo was paid by TechStop, right?
It's maintained.
Is maintained by TechStop.
Yes, sir.
What other streets does that apply to?
For TechStop?
Yeah.
Highway 83, which is of course Chihuahua and Guadalupe.
Okay.
Mines
Right.
Road?
Mines Road and of course the Loop. Those are the ones that come to mind. Those are all TechStop.
State highways, US highways.
So if we were to go that route, like towards my Loop, to try to make it a bike friendly, they would pick up the tab?
Only on their streets.
Only
not-
on their
not to
streets.
get- Yeah, that'd be great if we to get to, but no.
That's
I
what,
like that.
yeah,
I like
that's
that.
what I'm saying, hey, well, let's start
Yeah.
throwing them out there.
Yeah,
But-
no, but you know, because like Mr. Reed said, you know, because San Bernardo is business 35, even though it's not a highway, they maintain it and they run it, they maintain it, they resurface it, they restripe it.
So if we're gonna, I love this idea. I mean, I for one need to get on one of those diet bikes. You know, I mean, I
Well,
know that.
we'll
I
get you on
know
a
that. I got.
Yeah.
I'm on a diet forcibly, but I got on a diet about 2 weeks ago. So I understand that part. I mean, I need to get exercise, but if how are we gonna determine what streets are beneficial? Like who makes that? Who do we have a study for that?
In the,
I believe that little scan that you're talking about.
look,
they've
actually, here's
identified-
this one.
They already identified the streets that are already being used as for cyclists.
This is an, sorry to
the-
interrupt you, but this is an earlier version of our bike plan. So as you see in this first, is that orange? The
Well,
first
it's-
one,
Yeah.
let me find a better one.
Oh, anybody can see that.
You can see it back behind you, right there.
Yeah, it might be short like this. The screen isn't much.
Oh, look, here you go. So we've identified priority routes and we've identified, you know, kind of like tier routes and different levels, but, I think, what street is this?
So for example, there are like statistics that are out there. Obviously, you wanna make the bike routes the safest for cyclists, so,
That should be number one.
yeah, so it's not conducive to put a, bike, obviously, a bike lane on I-35. The higher the speeds of travel, the higher the stress level is for the cyclists, so you wanna go to a low stressed, plan. So it's always advisable to go to the least traveled street. I know that the Roberts just did a trip to Portland, Oregon, and you got a whole little, like, right, they kind of want to take, we don't want to be on major streets. The San Bernardo makes sense, number one, because it is being used.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, it really isn't a truck route, although there are trucks on it, I know that. I mean, I ride I-35, I ride San Bernardo myself, I mean, there are 18-wheelers out there. But you know, to be honest, you get kind of used to 18-wheelers, not that nobody wants it, but you get used to it.
No, but I think it's the other way around. The 18-wheelers get used to the bike, to the cyclist.
Well, that's.
I don't know about that.
By the way, the 3-foot rule is for vehicles. If you're in a truck, it's 6 feet. That's the law. That's the safe passage law in Laredo, as in most cities now in Texas, well, the country. So it's 6 feet for an 18-wheeler. And yeah, you haven't lived until you've been brushed, or we could say
I can
buzzed,
imagine.
by an 18-wheeler whizzing by you at, 60 miles an hour, holding on their horn on purpose. So, I mean, I've experienced that.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
you haven't lived, as the,
That's crazy.
as the wind is from the weight of the truck is literally pushing you on your side, or worse, getting sucked into the wheels. That happens. So, that's another story.
So
But,
we don't want bike lanes around 18-wheelers.
That's right, exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah, so yes, you gotta
And
go
there
to
are
the.
so many studies, I think when you were mentioning earlier the federal highway standards, and I know our planning department has hosted different workshops
Yeah.
for,
These median dividers for the bike trails seem like that would address that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the protected bike lanes? Yeah, they're becoming more
Necessity?
relevant here in the country. New York City was the first American city to start doing protected bike lanes. They're highly controversial. There's a lot of debate both ways, to be honest. I mean, of course, I'm an advocate, but I mean, there's debates because you are literally blocking, and there's all sorts of things on it. I mean, I'm all for them. If they're put in the, again, it's all about where you put them. It's not like, this has to be thoughtfully done. You know, when it comes to the traffic department, they know that, I mean, that's why they're working on this bicycle coordinator. They're gonna get the help they need to make the decisions, get that evidence, so that, we don't wanna, nobody wants to put a bike lane down that doesn't work. That's not good for anybody. So,
Well, and so I guess to answer some of that question also too, there's gonna be a whole host of input. Well, I was gonna input for when there's gonna be an establishment and a review. I mean, we have not only engineers, but Mr. Murillo is also an engineer and traffic specifically as well, not just a PE, but a traffic engineer. So, I mean, there's a lot of considerations. I mean, if you think about it as well, there's considerations of even basic stuff like driveways. You know, so let's say you do put down a protected lane, but you have a multitude of driveways that are established. And so you would have to open those opportunities to some degree for most, if not all of those as well. And so overlaying those considerations, our priority is gonna be safety. I mean, we start there and work our way down. But in all honesty, we are pretty aggressive in all forms of transportation. And then we're taking an active role in this because there's benefits to even our most common vehicular traffic. When you start to take some of those off the road, it helps everyone else that's actually driving because there's fewer cars in there. But I will say too, I mean, I didn't jump in there when it was said, but a lot of the time for traffic management, a lot of it has to do with safety, which has to do with speed. And those are kind of things that kind of are at opposite ends usually with most people, is that you know, for us, we would want to calm traffic down to manage it better, and usually there's a component of reducing speed to some degree, and that's usually at the opposite end of what people want to hear. And so they assume that traffic is sheerly moving traffic from point A to point B as quickly as possible. That's the majority of the folks that you would talk to is going to be that basic principle. We don't disagree with we're trying to get you there as quickly as possible. But we'll start off with managing that traffic best with that safety component first. And sometimes it might take that road guide. And in all honesty, in some cases, I mean, I know you talked about something out of the way, we have data to show also even this, and it's not truly a road diet, but even this narrowing of these lanes here on Bartlett, we have before and after data that shows that people are actually getting to their destination faster from point A to point B with less time. See, but you don't have the opportunity to have the 2-lane racing, left lane passing kind of idea. But you know, we'll go from knowing it takes you 4 minutes to go from this point to this point, that we can actually prove to show it takes you 3.5 minutes now. But in your mind, you just can't shake the idea that it should make more sense that if I have more lanes, I can get there faster.
Yeah.
It's just that if it's managed better, whatever managed means, might actually be by the reduction, but it's usually contrary to what most people think is, how do you expect me to go faster with fewer lanes? Well, there's ways actually to do it, and if you really think about it, there really is.
You took away the stop signs.
Well,
if you don't have to be pressing your brake, obviously that adds time
well,
to your
there is,
traffic.
but Frank showed the graph too with even those left turns. I mean, that shows you when you have a dedicated left turn lane that you could put somebody in a pocket and away from that traffic that's constantly flowing. You're not going to have to stop behind that one guy usually you're the one that gets behind that one guy that wants to make that left.
Yes.
And you have to stop while everybody's flying by you. Now you have that person who wants to do that get into that protected area, and this continues while that is managed. And so by managing traffic, you can actually get a better system of flow of traffic. So it takes a lot of different pieces, and it's a little bit. I mean, to me, it was foreign, but in you know, but once you start seeing a lot of different ways that it can actually be achieved, and seeing data behind it, it actually proves itself out. It proves itself out, and so that's what we're trying to do. I mean, and it has a big, heavy component. You know, that Bike Laredo meets at the health department, and it meets at the health department because it was an active committee by the mayor, Council on Wellness. And that all started with the Council on Wellness for the mayor, and he said, well, you know, there's a, you know, get fit part to this, and get fit means active, get active means gets on a bike means this. Get on a bike, now you have Bike Laredo means traffic, means transit, But it's also not all you know, unicorns and rainbows. Today, we can walk up right now to the Metro and they still have, you know, they cringe when they, you know, talk about San Bernardo. They have to manage, we have to manage, and there's considerations with that too, with mass transit. But again, there's all modes, and that's really what it is when you boil it down. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. And one component that the council speaks to is that equality issue as well. And then that's big. So you have the health side to this, you have the economic development, but the traffic or transportation equality component too. To say, if I can't afford a car, how am I, you know, being forced to not have the ability to get from point A to point B either safely, because I'm not going to walk, because it's just crazy walking on these streets, and they've taken a real heavy interest in this, and so we're going to continue. To answer your other piece, because one of the pieces that you asked as well, and there was a question about even what we're doing budget-wise and where we're going with this. We do have a bicycle pedestrian coordinator position that we're soliciting or recruiting for at this time. And what they're going to be doing, that individual would come in and do these assessments. They'll do these overlays. They'll add the components, working with, you know, our engineering side, working with our advocate side, to make sure that it all gets done. But because I know this is mostly bikes, but we have a big pedestrian component too that we need to overlay. Because that's the other piece too, is that we need to get to even having it more friendly even for walking pedestrians, more sidewalks, you know, that sort of idea. So that's kind of where we're going, and traffic is maybe not known for that. We may think traffic, we may think cars, but traffic, you know, when you talk about cars, you talk about people, get them out of the car, makes it better for the others that have to drive, because there's fewer, so I get to my place. So it's all like a little circle there.
I think this is great. It's great. Before all this, I was more of an impression that it was more of the group that was
the spandex warriors.
Oh, the spandex, yeah. You know what I mean? Now this shows. You know, it's awesome, man. It's great. You know,
well, I'm gonna let you know, I do have a photograph of Mr. Eads and some light crowd.
Oh, hey!
I'm holding hostage.
Put it in the Facebook page for traffic.
Right. All right, the presentation is over.
Now that we see the studies behind it and stuff, I think it's a great idea.
I do want to ask, what is your top priority? Obviously, the top priority is to get it out, right? And you're doing a really great job.
No, but this is good. Like, we need to be doing more of this, right? To people, because it's like we want to reach as many people to kind of like you said. Listen, if I'm out on a bike and I get in my car and all of a sudden I see this happening overnight and I'm driving down the middle of the lane, I'd be like, what the heck is going on? You know, I mean, it is. We have to work at that. I mean, we all do collectively. And it's, believe me, not everyone's going to be happy no matter what we do, because, you know, we're hearing this though from her generation. They're the ones that are telling us, you know, we want to stay in Laredo. There's a big push, you know, and the younger people want to be downtown. There's not places to live. I mean, there's all these different issues. And, you know, we just see this, you know, now that I can say I'm an elderly person or an older person, ouch, right? I mean, you know, I mean, we want to keep these kids here. I mean, we want them to grow up here and prosper and you know, keep that brain drain from leaving. We educate them in our public school systems, and then our brightest kids take off, and other cities are benefiting from it. What you see happening in other cities are coming from our own kids that are out there doing it somewhere else. And I mean, it's about that too. So it's a bigger, I know we're just talking traffic today, but this is so much bigger than all of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm not taking away anything from traffic department. Great job, but seriously, it is. It's like, and you know, getting the word out is important.
I hope we have the money to support it.
Well, we don't have any money.
Well, you know what I mean.
Well, but that's my question though. But
Yeah,
I wanted
it
to
is
ask,
money.
what is your priority? Is your priority is to get cyclists just to just to go out as a leisurely venture, or is it to get people to decide, you know, instead of me driving to work or me driving to the local grocery, I'm gonna get on my bike? Is that
Yes,
the mission?
yes,
What
yes.
is you know, obviously you can't have it. I mean, I think you need to grow into it.
Exactly.
First, you know, maybe do a campaign where, hey, let's make a Saturday bike day where.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that because it just so happens that it's National Bike Month.
Why don't
So
you
we're
put it up?
trying to do.
Well, I think
got the
that's why I
calendar?
caught it, because there was something that said bike,
Did you see the calendar?
Saturday bike day type deal.
No, I don't think so. We don't have it yet.
Well, you don't have it in a preview, yeah, you have it on the one.
It's gonna be kind of difficult though,
Previous one.
to get somebody that
Anyway.
lives in the north side,
This
that
one?
works
There was something
at the
I saw
bridge
too, it said.
to get on a bike,
Saturday bike.
you know.
day.
Or to the metro,
To the-
it's possible.
The Austin
to
Park
buses.
one, they have a calendar on there.
But,
Yeah.
Exactly. you mentioned.
Laredo people are
Well,
not gonna
that's true,
get up
because
an hour
that's another
earlier to
thing
get
you
the
have to
bus.
you have to consider is that we don't have, we
it's-
have all these
You know what I mean?
entertainment, areas that are not that
But
close
it's
together.
just-
You have a mall that's over here, you have downtown that's
Turn
over
it into
here,
a habit,
and you have a
you know
major
what I mean?
highway in between.
Yeah.
It's hard to break
So
those
how do you
habits.
get on a bicycle,
That's,
100-degree weather?
okay, that's, yeah, okay, look, there's no, we're not gonna do this overnight.
Oh, no, of
No, I mean,
course.
this is a seed. I mean, San Bernardo is the seed, and so, but we do need to work together on putting the plan together and connect the dots. You know, right now, our entire council, I have to say, this is like amazing, because I mean, 5 years ago, I couldn't even say this. Right now, our entire council is very supportive of, we call it active transportation. They all are. Right now, you know, you all could talk about it,